Benny Hammond. Season 1, Episode 1 introduced Benny Hammond, the kind diner owner who offered Eleven a meal and a fleeting sense of safety in a town that had no idea what was coming. He was a man who simply tried to help a scared child and became the first casualty in a chain of events that would engulf Hawkins in secrecy and danger. When the fake social worker arrived, he pulled a gun and staged Benny's death to look like he took his own life, proving the harsh truth that helping those in need could be fatal in this town. Benny wasn't killed by monsters or supernatural forces. He was executed by the very humans who were supposed to be in control, operatives of Hawkins Lab tasked with retrieving their escaped asset. Helping a scared kid in Hawkins? Yeah, that turns out to be a high-risk decision. His end revealed that the real world could be far more dangerous and deceptive than the Upside Down, because monsters may act with hunger and intent. But hear me out. They are honest about what they want, and while Brenner's people smiled, lied, and executed a good man in his own restaurant without giving him a chance to understand the stakes, Benny never knew what he had been caught up in and could not comprehend why simply offering kindness to a terrified child would cost him his life. But Benny's death was calculated. The next one was pure hunger and emotion, because we all felt it. Barb Holland. Barb's end became both infamous and heart-wrenching, sparking memes and fan campaigns for justice, yet the reality was far more tragic and brutal than humor could ever capture. She was simply in the wrong place at the wrong time, and everyone else was too distracted to notice. Sitting by Steve's pool and waiting for Nancy, Barb accidentally cut her hand on a beer can. The blood attracted the Demogorgon, which pulled her into the Upside Down and dragged her away. She screamed for help that never arrived because Nancy and Steve were lost in their own world. Hawkins has many flaws, but ignoring warning signs might be its most consistent personality trait. The creature left her body cocooned and forgotten, and the unfairness of her death struck hard because she wasn't heroic or sacrificial. She was just lonely, unnoticed, and vulnerable in the moments that mattered most. Her parents spent a year believing she had run away, the town forgot her, and only Nancy carried the unbearable weight of guilt. It's a reminder that sometimes the horror of loss is found not in spectacle, but in the quiet cruelty of timing and neglect. And then the show gives us the kind of loss that hurts because the victim knows exactly what they're walking into. Bob Newby. Season 2 gave Bob Newby a brief but unforgettable arc. As the heart and soul of Hawkins, Joyce's devoted boyfriend, who loved her children as if they were his own, solved the map puzzle, dressed up as a zombie for Halloween, and volunteered to reset the breakers in Hawkins' lab when the power failed, knowing the risk he was taking, yet doing it anyway. He made it to the control room, flipped the switches, and saved everyone. But on his way back to Joyce, he was tackled and mauled by demodogs while she could only watch, powerless to intervene, and the audience felt every moment of his loss, because his end was heroic, heartbreaking, and cruel in equal measure, stealing a man who had just proposed moving to Maine and starting a new life. Stranger Things really loves giving you hope just long enough to snatch it away. A man who deserved safety and love, and leaving the audience and Joyce alike to reckon with the merciless truth that the Upside Down does not care what anyone deserves. And not every loss came from monsters. Some came from something far more human. The Hawkins Lab scientists. Season 1 revealed the aftermath of the Demogorgon's escape in stark, unflinching detail. Bodies sprawled across floors. Blood coated the walls as the creature tore through everyone who had spent years studying it. They believed they could control it, which, in hindsight, feels wildly optimistic. The horror was compounded by the knowledge that these deaths were the result of human arrogance and cruelty. The doctors, guards, and scientists had been exploiting children, running illegal experiments, and overestimating their understanding of forces far beyond them. The Demogorgon turned on its observers the moment it gained freedom. Brenner barely escaped. Most of his staff did not. Their end served as both a warning and a preview of what happens when humans try to weaponize what they cannot comprehend. The audience could not help but feel a grim sense of inevitability. These victims had harmed others, yes, but their terror and helplessness in the face of a force they could not master underscored the brutal logic of the Upside Down. And that laboratory massacre? It was just practice for what came next. By the way, if you love Stranger Things, I'd really appreciate it if you could subscribe. It helps more than you know. It's Billy Hargrove. Season 3 gave Billy Hargrove a redemptive arc. He was possessed and controlled by the Mind Flayer. The creature forced him to commit acts of unspeakable cruelty. Possession never seems to bring out anyone's best qualities in Hawkins. He kidnapped victims and fed them to the monster to construct the grotesque flesh it demanded. But when the Mind Flayer tried to kill Eleven, something inside him snapped. Memories of his mother, his childhood, and the abuse he endured resurfaced. He made a conscious choice to protect someone else. Billy stood between Eleven and the creature. Its tentacles pierced his chest, stomach, and back repeatedly. His actions could not erase the pain and cruelty he had inflicted, but they offered a final act of humanity, a fleeting moment of redemption. Max was left conflicted, caught between grief and anger. She mourned a brother she had never truly known, and Billy isn't the only unexpected hero to fall because of Starcourt. Alexei, the Russian scientist who defected for cherry Slurpees and Woody Woodpecker, had finally escaped a life of manipulation and danger. He had found people who treated him as human rather than as a tool. But wait, relief came too late. Grigory discovered him at the fair. He shot Alexei in the chest. He left him bleeding in Murray's arms. There was no heroism, no grand purpose, just a life cut brutally short. It was a stark reminder that innocence is no shield against violence. The forces of Hawkins, intertwined with the Upside Down, did not reward survival. The audience felt the weight of a life stolen just as hope seemed within reach. And while Alexei dies innocent, another sacrifice in that mall carries the weight of an impossible choice. Hopper. Season 3's ending was supposed to be final, shocking everyone in Hawkins. The gate machine refused to shut down, and someone had to destroy it manually. Hopper stayed behind, facing Grigory in a desperate fight, and when he killed him, the platform was already surrounded by lethal electricity. There was no way back. Classic Hopper. Stuck between saving the world and breaking every safety rule imaginable. Joyce held the keys. She had to turn them to stop the machine. Hopper looked at her, nodded, and whispered it was okay. She obeyed. The machine exploded. Hopper vanished in the fireball. Gone. But you won't believe this. He didn't die. Fans immediately sensed something was wrong, and Season 4 confirmed it. Hopper had survived. Captured by the Russians, he was sent to a prison camp in Kamchatka. For an entire year, everyone believed he was gone. The grief felt real, because the show made it real. The tension, the despair, the emptiness, everything was authentic. Yet the story-proof survival doesn't always come with relief. Sometimes it carries a cruel twist. And if Hopper's survival rewrote grief, Season 4 also gave us losses that stayed permanent and hit harder than almost anything before. Chrissy Cunningham, the perfect cheerleader with a hidden pain. Chrissy hid behind smiles while buying illegal substances from Eddie. Hawkins High has a way of turning picture-perfect lives into quiet catastrophes, not for fun or partying. She wanted to escape the voice in her head, the one that tore her apart and made her feel worthless. Her mother's cruelty haunted her every thought. Vecna sensed it. He found her, marked her, and cursed her. She saw the grandfather clock, heard the chimes, then everything changed and she was ripped from reality and dragged into his mind lair, forced to relive every shred of trauma. Her mother's harshness replayed endlessly. Her own reflection twisted, decayed, and rotted before her eyes. By the time Eddie arrived, she was floating, her bones breaking, her eyes collapsing, gone in seconds. Eddie ran. He was blamed. Chrissy's end wasn't just a tragedy, it was a message. The moment Vecna announced himself, after decades of hiding, plotting, and preparing, he was ready. And Chrissy was only the beginning. And that beginning set off a chain of tragedy that consumed Hawkins. Fred Benson, the school journalist, quiet, anxious, carrying a secret no one knew. Fred had been in a crash. Someone had died, and he blamed himself. Vecna found that guilt. He exploited it with precision. Fred saw the grandfather clock. The chimes twisted reality, and hallucinations swallowed him. His victim's face appeared again and again. He was terrified and ran into the woods, but you can't run from Vecna, right? Not once he's inside your mind. And that's when Fred passed away alone among the trees. Nancy found him later, broken and lifeless. A stark reminder of how fragile the teenage mind could be. Another teenager consumed by trauma they couldn't process. Another life sacrificed to open a gate. But Vecna didn't pick randomly. He hunted the ones already fracturing, the pain that screamed the loudest. Fred never had a chance. And if that wasn't enough, his end proved that no one in Hawkins was truly safe. Not even the popular kids. Patrick McKinney. Patrick, the athlete with the abusive father, hid his pain behind a smile and the rhythm of sports, pretending everything was fine. But Vecna saw through it. He found the fear, the bruises, the nights spent terrified in his own home. Jason and the team were hunting Eddie at Lover's Lake when Patrick was in the water. Then he froze, started floating, and Jason screamed. But it was too late then. Jason watched it all unfold, helpless and confused, unable to understand anything except that Eddie was somehow involved. Jason's ability to leap to the worst possible conclusion remains unmatched. Patrick's end ignited something in Jason. Grief turned to rage, rage into obsession, and that obsession nearly tore Hawkins apart from within. Vecna didn't just kill him, he weaponized his death. He used it to fracture the town, turning the community against itself in ways no one could have imagined. And while Hawkins tears itself apart, the show gives us one of its purest, most painful acts of heroism. Eddie Munson. Eddie, the metalhead and dungeon master, had spent all of Season 4 running through Hawkins, hiding from suspicion and blame for crimes he never committed. Labeled a Satanist and occultist, the town had already decided he was a killer before he even had a chance to speak. Yet, when the moment came, he didn't run. He picked up his guitar and played Master of Puppets, using the music to draw the Demobats away from the Creel house and give the others the time they desperately needed to attack Vecna. The bats swarmed him, relentless and vicious, tearing at his body while he fought with everything he had. When Dustin tried to follow, Eddie cut the rope to keep him safe, ensuring the boy could survive even if he could not. He fell, bleeding and exhausted, yet he managed to smile and whispered that he hadn't run this time, that he was finally a hero, and then he was gone, just like a hero. But Eddie's heroic end couldn't prevent the most heartbreaking moment of the season. Max Mayfield, almost. Her curse was the longest and the most cruel, the one Vecna had saved for last. He forced her to watch Billy's death, her own guilt, and the weight of her depression, reminding her of the secret wish that she should have died instead. Max tried to run, but Vecna was faster. He lifted her, began breaking her, and there was no escaping him. Lucas grabbed her body and screamed her name, but it was too late. Her bones snapped, her eyes bled. She was gone, but 11 was in the void, listening. She heard Lucas crying, followed the faint thread of Max's consciousness, and pulled it back with everything she had. She restarted her heart, and Max awoke. But she was not the same. Technically alive, but gone in ways that no one could measure. Her mind was trapped somewhere 11 could not reach, leaving her body a shell. Fans debate whether it counts as death. Her heart had stopped, but she returned wrong, empty, a body without a person. Lucas sits with her every day, reading letters and hoping she can hear him. But Max isn't there, and no one knows if she will ever truly come back. And Max's fate was tied to one final victim, who never made it to the finale. Dr. Martin Brenner, Papa, the man who raised her, harmed her, and controlled her. He loved her in his own twisted way. In Season 4, Brenner helped 11 regain her powers, but it wasn't to save Hawkins. It was to keep her close, to maintain control. When the military attacked the lab, he tried to hold her, to pull her back under his influence. 11 refused. She fought with everything she had, standing over him like a hero. He called her his daughter, asked her to say she understood, and claimed it was all for her. She said nothing. She refused to call him Papa and simply walked away. Reddit called it the most satisfying silence in the series. He was left dying in the sand, and fans called it the most satisfying silence in the series. It felt like the story finally caught up to him, alone. His end felt small, painfully small. A man who spent decades breaking children, dying while begging one of them to pretend she cared. She didn't, and no one else did either. So, which Stranger Things death hit you the hardest? Still angry about Barb? Can't forgive the show for Eddie? Drop your answer in the comments. I read every single one.